Today we are going to solve by substitution. Just a reminder, if I gave you something like this, how would you use substitution to figure out what y is? Riley?
I would just replace the x with 2.
So you would replace the x, right, with the number 2, and you would get 10, right? You did this, I said that yesterday, I think. I said this unit is from a review from last year. Yeah. Hey, there will be like 2 or 3 new things you'll learn in this unit. But this week and next week is all going to be review.
What shouldn't I do bad on?
That is the thought, yes. All right, so let's do that with more of an expression. So what do you do when you have variables when you do not have the same variables isolated on the same set of equations? Well, to solve by substitution, you have some steps. So we're going to write them down on this one, and I'm not going to write them again. So solve by substitution.
Is this easy notes? Like, it's just established.
If you be quiet, it would probably be easy.
No, it wouldn't.
Okay, guys, please. So the first step is to isolate one of the variables in one of the equations. So to isolate means to get alone. So, if you're looking at what we have so far, we have x equals y minus 11 and y equals 2x plus 15. Do we have a variable isolated yet or not? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that step is not necessary for us in this one. So we're going to do the next step. So you're going to take the expression squeaks, it is annoying, but the other one isn't writing, so that is equal to the isolated variable goal is to get a new stylus this weekend. So take the expression that is equal to the isolated variable and replace it with that same variable in the other equation. And we'll talk about what that means in a second. I think I might have it somewhere, actually. All right. So, do you guys see how x is the same thing as y minus 11? Do you guys see that?
That would be really correct.
Do you see an x somewhere else? After the 2, right? So we can take that and we can say, well, since y minus 11 and x are the same, you can replace two things that are the same, right? So we can say y equals 2 times, and instead of x there, we replace it with y minus 11, like we did in the previous example that I did on the board, on the front page. But instead of it just being a single number, it's an expression. we doing this? Before, we had 2 variables per expression. Can you solve if you have 2 unknowns? No, but now how many unknowns do we have? 1. So that's what makes it a little bit easier here. So we're going to use the distributive. So the next step, I should write the next step up. The next step is to solve for the remaining variable. So Jordan, how would I solve for the remaining variable? What would you do first? You would distribute the 2. Please stop. Riley, what would you do next?
15 to negative 22.
Justin Powers, what would you do after that? You got to get the y's to the same side of the equation. Yep. And then we just have to divide by -1, so we get y equals 7. But let's pause and remember what?
How did you subtracting 2y, y minus 2y, how did they get to negative?
So it's 1 minus -2. Do you see that or no? -2. If you add 1, that's 1 to the right, which puts us at -1. Do you see that? Okay. You're fine. Okay, so think about yesterday. What is a solution to a system? What does it look like on a graph?
It's
It's a point of what?
where the lines intersect.
So it's a point of intersection. So if it's a point of intersection, you need 2 values. You need an ordered pair. If you have 1 value, are you done yet? No, so you still need to substitute back in to find x. And then write your final answer as an ordered pair. So substitute in to find the other variable. Stop. So it doesn't matter which equation you substitute that 7 back in for in the original equations there. Does it matter? RC, do you think it matters which equation you substitute the y equals 7 into for?
No.
So do you want to use x equals y minus 11 or y equals 2x plus 15?
X equals y minus 11.
So x equals y minus 11, and we're taking this 7 and we're replacing it with y because they're the same thing. I just made that a y instead of an x. Sorry, guys. So x equals -4, not -3. So we always write our final answer as an ordered pair. So what is the ordered pair, Emma?
-4.
Yep, it's always alphabetical order. Okay, questions on that one? Okay, go ahead and get it written down, then flip to the next page when you're ready.
Do you have a lot of roots to do?
Yes. Because there's word problems and stuff, which take a while. But, like, Monday will be a review of this stuff, so, like, we won't be learning something new on Monday. Okay, so we're going to use those steps again, but I'm just going to keep them on the front page so you have them there, so if I need to flip back, I can. So it says, what do you do when you only have one equation that has an isolated variable? Well, the first step is to isolate a variable. Do we already have a variable isolated? Yeah, so do we have to worry about that step? No. So step 2 says to take the expression that is equal to the isolated variable and substitute it into the other equation. So y is the isolated variable. And I see a y down here. You guys see that? So I can take that expression and replace it with that y there. So I have negative 2x minus 3 times 6x minus 11 equals negative 7. So I'm going to pause here because this is the most confusing part. If you can't do this part, then obviously you're not going to be able to finish the rest of it. But I think if you can get to this part, you should be able to finish the rest of it. So is anybody confused at how I replaced y with 6x minus 11? Do we have questions there? Okay. So y is our lone variable. We went from having 2 unknowns to 1 unknown of just an x. So that makes it easier for us to solve. So the next step is to solve for that variable. So Colin, what would you do first to solve for the x?
You would distribute negative 3 into 6x and negative 11.
And it was super important that he said it's a negative 3. Always take the sign that's in front of the number. Justin Crater, what would you do next?
Add negative 2x and then
Connor Clover, what would you do after that? J-Lo, what would you do after that? Are you done? No, remember we said that we're looking for where these two lines intersect. So if we're looking at a coordinate plane, that means we need an ordered pair, which is 2 points. So we need another point. How do I go about finding that other point, Justin? Which equation do you want to plug it in for? The y equals 6x minus 11 or negative 2x minus 3y equals negative 2? Okay. So since x is 2, I can replace that x with 2. And I get, did I do that? Yeah, I missed the 11. Thank you. So y equals 1. So how would I write up my answer then, Lexi?
2, 1.
X, comma, y. We always go in alphabetical order. Questions on that one? Yes, Connor.
Do you always, when you get the x, you always substitute it in for the y equation, right?
You substitute, it doesn't matter which one you substitute it in for. We could have, Connor, substituted in for this one too. It's just a little bit more work to do it that way because you'd have to move things around.
Okay.
Where y is already isolated and that's what you're trying to find, so it makes it a little bit easier. But it really doesn't matter.
Okay.
Other questions? That was a good question there. Okay, so now what? We don't have a variable isolated at all. So we said step 1 was to get a variable isolated. And it's really important that we pick the best variable to isolate. So which variable in this situation would be the easiest to isolate? Kaylee?
X in the second equation.
Yeah, x in the second equation. Why did you choose that, Kaylee?
Because X is already, just X.
Yeah, it's already isolated, right? And it's not isolated all the way, it's just x. So if you were to try to solve for x in this one, you would add 2y over and divide by 7. You're going to create fractions. How many of you love fractions and want to deal with them?
Dude, love them.
Good. So you three, if you want to create fractions, go for it. But the rest of us probably would prefer working with integer numbers, okay? We don't want to work with fractions. So it's important to look for that isolated. So as Kaylee said, x in the second equation is the easiest to isolate it, so all we have to do is add 2y. I like that calculator. I've never seen that one. I know.
Favorite calculator.
Yeah.
Is that,
So x is the same thing as 2y plus 11, and we have to use the other equation. So notice we solved for the bottom equations. We have to substitute into the top equation in for x for 2y plus 11. So how would that look? Cassie, how would you write that up? Tell me exactly what you would write if you substitute 2y plus 11 in for x.
Okay, so -7 parentheses 2y plus 11
Good.
parentheses 2y negative 2y equals -13.
Perfect. Sorry. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Okay, so Alyssa, what would you do next? One second. So you would distribute. Colin, what would you do after that?
Then you combine the -14y and the -2y.
good job, Colin.
Connor, what would you do now?
Oh shoot. Add 77. Thanks. I feel good about myself.
Josh, what would you do after that?
Divide -16y. Or is it just -16?
There you go. Good correction. But I'm not done because I need an ordered pair. So Grace, what do I still have to do?
Yeah.
It is -4, right? Did everybody else do it and get -4? Okay, so which one do you want to substitute in for the top or the bottom equation?
Wouldn't that be +8?
Yeah, it will be when you multiply them. So Mike, what would my ordered pair be? Yeah, we always go alphabetical order, so X comes before Y in the alphabet, so that's why it's like that. We have one more of these types of examples, and then we're going to get into word problems. Please, listen to me. Please try the word problems on your homework. Start by defining what you are trying to find. Tell me what X and Y are. Tell me what N and P are. I don't care what you call the variables. Just define the variables and attempt to make two equations. Please and thank you. Just because you see a bunch of words on the paper does not mean you should skip it automatically. Do we all understand that?
Yes.
If I walk around and more than half of you have not tried the word problems, I'm not going to go over word problems at all with you guys on Monday. Do you understand that? So at least put an attempt to it so I can go over them with you. Does everybody understand that? Okay. So the last one. So we already have variables isolated, but it's the same variable isolated. And for whatever reason, when this happens, some of you guys will get super confused. Not all of you, just some of you. I don't know what it is. It's It's really not that difficult, but I think it just throws you guys for a loop that there's the same variable isolated. So look at this here. Y is the same thing as 2x plus 4, and y is also the same thing as 2x minus 3. So what do you know about 2x plus 4 and 2x minus 3?
Oh, I was gonna say what to do, but
What do you know about those pieces? And then you can tell me. Yeah.
They're parallel.
Well, yeah, that's
They're
true.
both
But, yes, but I've got to think of a better way to ask this question, I
There's no
think.
solution.
Right, but we're not there yet. So, if y is the same as this, and y is also the same as this,
They equal each other.
they are the same as each other. They are equal to each other. So, Colin, what do you get to do with those two pieces?
okay, so you just still replace the y to where 2x plus 4 is equal to 2x minus 3.
Right, these just replaces this y here. So we have 2x plus 4 equals 2x minus 3. So I get 4 equals negative 3. Well, that's not true. So what do we write?
No solution.
Awesome.
If it were a true statement, you would write infinitely many.
I don't know.
Mom, you can call them 3 times.
Sounds like some disease that we're simplifying. You know, like how they always like simplify things. All right.
If you were looking to diagnose for
Exactly.
Hold your basket up.
What?
Throw this in the basket.
Oh, that basket. I was like, what are you even referring to?
Your phone.
All right.
Get on your phone.
It's the paper
Go
basket.
home.
I don't have a phone.
Okay, we're going to get into word problems now. It is time to open our minds and be ready to not say I don't know because you're so afraid of word problems. I know, that's what happens. I feel like you guys like shut down, like automatically just shut down.
I shut down as soon as I went out.
All right. At the end of the 2010-2011 football season, 45 Super Bowl games have been played. Okay, just so we all know, because not all of us are sports people.
What's a Super Bowl?
If there has been 45 Super Bowls played, how many total winners could there be? 45. You both can't win the game. Okay? So let's what first step thing here is there's been 45 Super Bowls, so only 45 winners.
Power Rangers.
All right.
Power of teamwork can achieve anything.
Okay, guys. You ready to focus back up here? So the National Football Conference, the NFC, has won 3 more Super Bowls than the American Football Conference, the AFC. How many Super Bowls has each conference won? So step 1, tonight, tomorrow, Sunday night, Monday morning, whenever you're rushing to get your homework done, is to define your variables. What am I trying to find?
NFC games won and AFC games won.
And how do you want to define those? It doesn't matter if you use X and Y, you can use whatever you want.
X is NFC and Y is
NFC all the way.
Yeah.
What's in it?
Read serious.
You should all be able to do this part. This should be a part. Here's where it gets a little bit confusing for you guys. Now, you'll notice we're trying to find 2 things, which means we need 2 equations. So we need to pull apart the information here to determine 2 equations. So the first part of information is that we know that a total of 45 Super Bowl games have been played. That's the first part of information we know. The second piece of information is that the NFC has won 3 more Super Bowls than the AFC. So do you see how I have the green and the blue there?
You put NFL, but it's in.
That's a C. It's just a very terrible C.
I put a L.
It is the NFC.
National French Fries.
Yeah, but that would be everybody, so that really wouldn't help us. All right, so how could I create an equation that talks about 45 Super Bowls that have been played? 45 winners have occurred. Connor?
I'm kind of scared. I don't know.
I don't care if you're wrong. It doesn't bother me.
Okay. So this is for like both
The-
of them. Like.
This is for the green. Green is one equation. Blue is a second equation.
Oh, okay. So if there's been 45 winners, then y would equal. No. Okay.
So how could we think about this? Yeah.
45 equals y plus 3. That would be the.
Well, don't mix and match, guys. We're only dealing with the green. So you're mixing the blue and the green together. Do you see that? We want to keep them separate because we need two equations, all right? So that's why I highlighted them in two different colors there. Yeah.
Is it x equals 45?
But x doesn't equal 45. That would imply that only the NFC has won games.
Oh.
You see what I'm saying?
NFC is.
Kaylee.
Would be 45 equals x plus y?
Yes. Oh my gosh. So, Josh was off to a good start when he said x equals 45. The problem with that is, remember, that means the number of NFC wins. So if you said x is 45, that implies only the NFC has won. Do you guys see that?
Yes.
Well, Kaylee added in, why not do x plus y? Because that's the number of NFC wins plus the number of AFC wins for a total of 45 wins. So that makes more sense there. Does that make sense where that came from?
Yeah.
I'm gonna make cash.
Okay. So the next one has to do with that second equation. We have used the number 45. Do not use it again.
Oh yeah.
Once you've used something, don't reuse it. Do you understand me? We're only looking at the blue highlight now. It says NFC has won 3 more Super Bowls than the American Football Conference. Who has more wins right now?
NFC.
The NFC should have more wins. How many more? So we know that the NFC should have more wins. So the NFC has to equal something because that's going to be the more wins there. Okay? How can we find the number of wins if the NFC has 3 more than the AFC?
Wait. Yeah. Would it be x equals y plus 3?
So think about this. This is just theoretical. This is not the answer because it's not even going to add to 45. But if the AFC had won 12 games, the NFC would win 15. Do you see how 15 is bigger than 12? Shouldn't NFC have more wins than the AFC? It doesn't hurt, sorry, to think logically through these problems. Mike, stop it.
The last time that we touched that water.
What?
You're unreal.
He really is.
He's unreal. Like,
No,
honestly.
I remember
Like, take
a day not so far in the past.
Okay,
You're so bad.
so x is already isolated, so we can take what x is equal to and replace it in the other equation. Yep. So I want you to attempt to write, define your variables and attempt to write the 2 equations no matter what, okay? That's really what I'm asking for. So the AFC has won 21 games. How could we figure out what the NFC has won? Add 3, so X would be 24. Since it's a word problem, you have to write up your final answer as a sentence. So the NFC had won 24 Super Bowls. in the AFC 21.
Wait, those are the amount of Super Bowls they've won?
What?
Those the amount of Super Bowls they've won?
Yeah.
That's a lot of Super Bowls.
Well, that was from 2011. It's been, I mean, what is it? 2018 this year, so that's 7 more Super Bowls. So is it the 52nd this year?
52nd? Who can watch football that many years?
People that are old enough to be there at that age. So, like, if you're 52, you could have watched every Super Bowl. You may not remember them. So somebody in their, like, 60s would probably be somebody that would remember all of the Super Bowls.
Like Super Bowl. I don't want to offend anyone. No, it's where you put your cereal.
All right, next one.
My act is running too.
A bookstore that sells books and magazines just opened. They sell books for $12 each and magazines for $3 each. In the first week, the store sells a total of 55 items. The sales totaled $345. How many books did the store sell and how many magazines did the store sell? So we start off by defining our variables. So Mike, what are we trying to find?
How many books did the store sell?
So B equals the number of books sold. What else are you trying to find?
Number of magazines.
Good. And I'm going to say M equals the number of magazines sold. So I'm doing this because you don't necessarily need to use X and Y. Could you have used X and Y? Sure. Justin, what's up? Yep. So we have to keep like pieces together, like units together. So it says something about money here. Do you see how it says that books are $12 each and magazines are $3 each? Do you see anything else with money anywhere else in this problem? The sales total is $345. You cannot create equations that do not have like units. So those are all like units. They all deal with money. So the other thing we have here is the total. They sold a total of 55 items. So those are our two equations, the blue highlight and the green highlight. Okay, please make sure you're paying attention. Okay, how could you write an equation that says in the first week the store sells 55 total items? What would you do to create that equation, Connor?
I'm going to copy what Kaylee did and do M plus B equals 55.
And you would be a genius to copy her.
Good job.
Plagiarism is how you get
That isn't plagiarism. That's learning from somebody else.
I'm so proud of you.
also known as plagiarism.
No. So, that makes sense. So if you ever, this is an important thing to learn from both Kaylee and Connor, because that's not plagiarism. That's like using like a smart ability to learn from somebody else. So, anyways, so if you ever have anything that is to a total, you're going to add the variables together, because this is saying the number of magazines sold plus the number of books sold is 55. Right? Does that make sense?
Yep.
So now we just have to create an equation with the money. Go ahead, Colin.
I got this. Okay, so it's going to be 12B because the books are $12 plus 3M because the magazines are $3 each, and then that's going to equal $345. And
I loved your explanation the whole time. It was really good. So, as he said, it's $12 per book. So, if Emma bought 5 books, she would have to pay $12 per book, which is $60, right? But if Kaylee decided to go and buy, 5 magazines, she would have to pay $3, which would be a total of $15. Does that make sense?
Yes, Mom.
So, that's why those are being multiplied, because we have to figure out the number sold to get that total price. So, we've learned substitution. To use substitution, we have to isolate a variable. So, Connor Clover, which variable do you want to isolate? In which equation? Would it make sense to isolate B in the bottom? Think about that. If I subtract 3, then I'm going to have to divide everything by 12. You're going to get fractions. Is that going to be fun? No. Would it be better to... So what would you do to isolate that?
Wait.
What am I subtracting on both sides? Okay, Connor, you're losing focus.
Connor, we're almost done, man.
Why did I box that whole thing? So B is the same thing as 55 minus M. So where we see B in our other equation, we can replace it. So I have 12 times 55 minus M plus 3M equals 345.
Yay. Mother of really big number. It's like huge.
Can somebody do 12 times 55 in the calculator? Yeah. Say it, Connor, and then I'll check, and then she can check you. I didn't hear her. 660?
Yeah.
Is that what you got too?
Yeah. Emma.
I got
Oh yeah, it's okay. You're a girl.
I got 666.
There are so many things wrong.
With what?
You guys are so mean to each other.
It's Okumu. Who?
All of you.
It's just our relationship.
Connor.
Can can somebody do 345 minus 660? Did you get the same thing, Emma?
Negative 315.
Okay, good. I just want to check because I've done a whole problem with a kid telling me something from their calculator and then it's been wrong. So
Me?
never have I said your name about
No,
that.
you just said that I was solving your problem with someone who did with their calculator wrong. I'm like, well, I did my calculator.
Did you kick the wall?
That's been there the whole year and no.
I punched a hole in my wall with my dad and he hasn't noticed.
I punched open the
I went,
So M equals, oh my gosh. M equals 35. Or 50, yeah, 35. So how could we find the number of books? So the number of books is 20. So they have sold 35 magazines and 20 books.
to be honest, who, like, just buys magazines?
It used to be a big thing, but I don't think, are magazines still big?
Then I took an arrow to the knee. No!
Did you just say yeah till you took an arrow to the knee?
It's Skyrim, bro.
You Skyrim scrub.
All right, guys, we will stop here.